this is how I would probably approach photoshopping that. Initially, what you needed to do is rather than just cut out this area here, you needed to actually get some of its background as well, so it didn't feel like it was floating on top. And you could probably go in and even manipulate some of these areas as well to make them a little bit different. For instance, let's go and use our object selection tool. I'm going to use it on the lasso, and I'm going to select as closely as I can in here and get that piece. And then I can maybe move it a little bit. Oh, well, we've got some background we've got to deal with there, but perhaps we can go in and rotate it a little bit, you know, change its scale a little bit. If you haven't already, if you still have the background here, then you can do it without having to mess that up. And you might also go in and put a little bit of feather on this so that that isn't quite so dramatic of being cut out. That way these F's look like they're not the same F, but two different F's in that way. Anyway, if you've got that background there, then you can do that and it'll be more successful. The other thing I would do to put some background in here, perhaps what I should do here, we'll go up a little bit larger here, and let's get some of this background. Perhaps we can go ahead and just select some of it here and stay enough away from that that I don't have to worry about capturing that. Right? And maybe we'll go and put a little bit of a feather on it as well here. Just again to keep it from having that kind of rough edge. I'm going to copy that, that's Command C, and I'm going to Command V, paste it. So now I've got that piece right there that I'm going to bring that over here. I've got that piece, I'm going to bring that piece over here to maybe, again, I can Command T and maybe rotate it or scale it a little bit to make it different so it's not the same. We don't want it to appear like we've been just photoshopping the same thing there. And maybe we'll put this one on the other side. Right? Now it's on top here, and again, if you've got this already in Photoshop with layers, you could put this on a layer below that and that'll work perfectly. I don't have that option here. So what I'm going to do is going to go ahead and I'll hit return to leave this thing here. I'm going to turn this off for a second, and then I'm going to select this part here with my object selection tool. Oops, I was still on this layer. Gotta go to this layer and do that. So deselect this. I thought I had done that, but we'll go here now and select this part of the sardines. Here like this. So I've got that. I'll put a little filter or a feather on it. Modify, feather. So I've got a feather on this. And then I'm going to inverse, or no, I'll tell you what, let's leave it like that. Let's turn on this other layer and go to that layer. Make sure you click on this layer. We've got that selected. Now let's just subtract that selection from this layer, right? So now, as I hide that selection, you'll see that that looks like it's underneath there, and it's actually part of that. So you can do that. You can also go in, while we've still got that thing selected like this, we could also go in, and I'm going to do an inverse. So if you go to select inverse, now everything but that is selected, right? I'll go to this layer. Actually, I want to be on this layer, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the rubber stamp tool, the clone stamp tool here, and I'm going to make sure that it's on all layers, right? So it's sampling all layers, not just the layer I'm on, which is this layer that only has that little bit of stuff there. And then I'm going to go over and just pick an area, perhaps like this one. I'll hold down the Option key, select that area. Then I'm going to come over here, and everything is selected but that, so I can't paint on top of that, if that makes any sense. So I can maybe go in, whoops, I got too close to the thing there. I can maybe go in and put a little bit of this texture or something in there, right? So that I can kind of change that a little bit to make it look different than the one I had. I just have to be careful that I don't get too close to that other area. And I can keep going in and selecting some and adding some here and there. You know, let's see what that looks like if we scroll back a little bit. I'm going to say okay. Now let's go. Got too much of that one there, so let's get this and put a little bit of that texture there. Okay. All right, let's scroll back. And now this is starting to look like it's sitting on the paper as well, right? So you'd have to kind of do that around a lot of these areas. But if you can, you know, Photoshop that background back in there, that'll kind of help with that. The other thing I would do, Colin, is I would probably overall on both of these, and eventually what you might want to do is go ahead and merge these layers. So I'll go to layer, I'm just going to merge right now, merge those together. And then go to image, adjustments, and maybe play with the levels a little bit. Here what I'm going to do, I'm going to make the darker areas darker and the lighter areas lighter, and then play with my mid-range to probably get something that doesn't feel quite as dark in the area in here. Once I've got something I'm pretty happy with, I'll say okay with that. You can also get rid of some things that are part of the photograph that you don't want using that rubber stamp tool. I'm going to zoom in to this area right here that, you know, that showed up, but it's really not part of the poster that's important, and maybe I want to cover it up. I could use the rubber stamp tool, or I could also use the healing brush tool. I'm going to use the healing brush tool, use my right bracket to make that brush bigger. I'll use the Option key to sample where I want to sample this from. I'll sample right about there. And now I'll just kind of brush in these areas, and I can get rid of some of the things that, while they're, you know, part of what happens in the photograph, they're maybe not things that I want to distract the viewer and pull the eye away. So that's how I would probably approach this with that. All right. You'll have to add some more text. Obviously, you may want to do a little bit of cropping depending on where you want this to fall in the middle of that space as well.